Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made this really cute baby doll top, and I think it was pretty easy, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. So I first of all made a slip knot and inserted a 6mm crochet hook into the slip knot, and then I began making a chain that was 27 inches long, and that was just the measurement of almost all the way around my bust, maybe minus 2 inches, because the top is slightly open at the back. But obviously you can do whatever size you want it to be. So once it was 27 inches, I then chained one and then began double crocheting into every stitch along the chain. And if you don't know how to double crochet, all you do is yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops on your hook. So yeah, I just did a double crochet stitch into every stitch along the chain. And once I got to the end, I then chained one, and then I turned my work and began double crocheting again into every single stitch along for this row. And I just continue to double crochet into every single stitch for every single row, and remembering to chain one before I turn my work when I got to the end of each row. And then yeah, so I just continued to do that until the length was 7 inches, and that's just how long I wanted the bust area to be, but obviously it depends what you want. So when I got to the end, I obviously cut the yarn and tied a knot, and then I began making the mesh part, and I made it separate from the body, but you can add it to it, depends what you want. So to start, I made a slip knot, and then I inserted my hook, and I made a chain that was 23 inches long. And obviously mine was 4 inches smaller than the body part, and that's just because I wanted it to mainly only cover my stomach. So when the chain was 23 inches long, I then chained one more, and then I skipped the first stitch, and then I did a double crochet stitch into the second stitch of the chain, like so. Then I chained one, and then I skipped the next stitch, so I went into the second stitch from the stitch I just did a double crochet into, and then I did a double crochet into that stitch, and then chained one, and again skipped one stitch, then double crocheted into the second stitch, and then chained one, and then skipped the next stitch and then double crocheted into the second stitch. So essentially you're skipping one stitch, double crocheting into the second stitch and then chaining one, and you just repeat that the whole way along the chain. So just as I said before, skipping one stitch and then double crocheting into the second stitch and then chaining one. So once I'd done my first row, I then obviously chained one, entered my work, and then I just double crocheted into the very first gap that was there, and then chained one, and then double crocheted into the next gap, then I chained one and then double crocheted into the next gap. So basically you just double crochet into each gap that's there and then chain one in between each double crochet that you do, and you basically just do that the whole way along the row. And for the third row and every single other row, you do exactly the same. You just chain one and then double crochet into each gap and then chain one in between each double crochet stitch that you do. And I just continued to do this until the mesh section was 10 inches long. And then I just measured like the bust part of it, and I laid out the mesh part because I measured it to be in the middle, but I'd recommend obviously making the mesh part the same size as the bust part. Because I made mine separately ages ago, it was a lot smaller, and then so obviously I made sure it was directly in the middle of the bust part, and then I just began crocheting it onto the bust part, so making a slip knot and getting a smaller crochet hook, so it's easier, and I'm using a bobby pin to mark where directly to put the mesh section. And yes, I just inserted my hook into both stitches of the bust part and the mesh part, and then I just did a single crochet to start. And then for the rest of the stitches, I used a slip stitch to stitch the mesh part and the bust part together. So I inserted my hook into both of the stitches on each side, and then I just yarned over and pulled all the loops that were on the hook and pulled through the two stitches as well. So here's me just slip stitching it all together now. And obviously when I got to the other side, I cut the yarn and tied a knot. I then made a slip knot and inserted my crochet hook, and then I just made a chain that was 70 inches long. And I made mine 70 inches because I'd made the body part quite long, so I didn't really need to tie too much up, but it just depends how big you made the body part. So once it was 70 inches, I then cut my yarn and pulled a knot. Then I just got the body part bit that I had made, and then I just folded it so each of the corners were in the middle. And then I just began by threading the chain through. So I just started by inserting my hook into the top corner of one side, and I used a 5mm hook, so it was a bit smaller than the other ones I've been using. And then I just got the end of the chain, and then I just threaded it through, and I did the exact same on the other side, like so. And I basically just thread it through all the way down the body part bit, just kind of like a shoelace kind of pattern, so crisscross all the way down. And I just kind of did it random. You can measure it, but I just did it random how I did, just crisscross the chain all the way down. Once I'd done that, I then measured 3 inches from each side and placed a bobby pin / stitch marker, and then I turned it round and then measured 5 inches from each side and then placed a bobby pin there. And then I got my 6mm crochet hook and then made a slip knot. And then I turned my work sews at the back, and then I inserted my hook into the stitch with the bobby pin in at the back. And then I just began making a chain from that stitch. So my chain was 13 inches long, and that is just for the straps. So once the chain was 13 inches long, that's just how long I wanted the straps to be. I then inserted my hook into this bobby pin stitch at the front, and then I just did a single crochet into the stitch. I then did a double crochet into the stitch next to the stitch I just single crocheted into, like so. And then I turned my work, and then I just began double crocheting into every stitch of this chain. So when I'd got to the other end, I then did a double crochet into that stitch next to the one I had a bobby pin in before, and then I just began again double crocheting for a second row into every stitch along the strap. So I only did 2 rows of double crochet because that's just how thick I wanted the straps to be, but obviously you can do whatever. So once I finished that row of double crochets, I then did a double crochet into the stitch next to the one I'd done a double crochet into before for the last row attached to like the bust part, and then I just cut the yarn and tied a knot. And I obviously did that on the other side for the other strap. And then I just got a yellowy cream coloured yarn, and I got a 4.5mm crochet hook, and then I just began making a chain that was 30 inches long. So once it was 30 inches long, I then cut the yarn and pulled a knot through, and then I just got all the ends and started weaving them in. And then I got my work, and then I just made a bow of the 30-inch chain I'd made before, and I just made a bow on to the straps of each side. And that was the top finished. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you decide to make this yourself.